I think this is the beginning of a defensive front.
This is a great talent to add opposite of Myles Garrett. You can never have too many good defensive linemen.
The NFL streets have been quiet, too quiet. Until now, we have breaking news on a trade that the Minnesota Vikings just made, and I have a feeling that this is not going to be our first trade that we're hearing from the Minnesota Vikings. I'm expecting another trade to happen within the next week. I'm here to tell you why, and it is absolutely insane. So before we get to the content, we are giving away $500 in total to multiple subscribers that turn on our notifications on this channel when we hit 700,000 subscribers. And now that we got all that out of the way, break! This is the closest we're ever going to get to being given free money. Joel Embiid just needs to score 1 point in Game 7. So here are my picks. I'm going to have Joel Embiid getting 1 point at minimum. And then I have Jaylen Brown with a combined 9.5 rebounds and assists. I'm putting in 25 to hopefully make 75. And I'll keep you guys posted on my Instagram story. And make sure you use my promo code Mikerophone so they can match your initial deposit up to $100. Mike check 1212. What's going on, everybody? There's been a consistent theme during this offseason for the Minnesota Vikings, and although on paper and at face value, you might be a little confused at first when you hear about it, well, that's why I'm here to explain what's going down with them. The Minnesota Vikings moved on from a huge staple of theirs this past offseason, a player that maybe some Vikings fans have a nostalgic attachment to in Adam Thielen. The thing is, Adam Thielen of this past year wasn't anywhere close to the Adam Thielen of 2017 or 2018, where he was going for over 1,000 yards receiving each and every season. Slowly but surely, his age really started to catch up with him, became heavy-footed, and at a specific point it made sense for the Minnesota Vikings to elect to move on from him, and Adam Thielen ended up signing with the Carolina Panthers. Am I bringing this up? Well, what did the Minnesota Vikings do in order to fill the void left by Adam Thielen? After Adam Thielen spent some time mentoring Justin Jefferson, it's now Justin Jefferson's turn to mentor a brand new wide receiver that was also selected at the end of the first round. Minnesota Vikings decided to select Jordan Addison. And by the way, so far, Jordan Addison has been drawing rave reviews. I mean, this is what Kevin O'Connell had to say about Addison after his first practice. First round pick Jordan Addison has looked as advertised. He's sharp in and out of his breaks while running routes with little wasted movement as he changes direction. And although he did have one drop on a low pass in 7-on-7, his hands looked good as well. You might be thinking,
Mike, what's the big deal about all that? Well,
do you guys remember how last year we were making videos on how Treylon Burks couldn't even make it through training camp and his conditioning was off? So at least this isn't that. Hell, Kevin O'Connell even said that he's ahead of the curve. Jordan has been meeting over Zoom a little bit since we drafted him, obviously within the confines of the rules. You can tell he's a little bit ahead of a lot of the guys out on the field today, where he's lining up, understanding exactly what that play means for what routes he has, and how to adjust once the picture changes when that ball is snapped. I thought Jordan had a really good day and just looks and feels the part, which is exactly what I expected out of him. Now, you might be thinking,
okay, Mike, why are you bringing this up? What does this have to do with anything? Well,
it seems like there's a huge emphasis for the Minnesota Vikings to have a fresh infusion of youth to support Justin Jefferson and Kirk Cousins on offense. And it's crazy how extreme this may go, by the way, because a player that was a staple on their team for quite some time, Dalvin Cook, might be the one that's going to be traded next. Now, bear in mind, this is before we even get to the trade that this video is about, but I just want you to understand where the Minnesota Vikings are at currently. They may part ways with a player that was a face of their franchise. As a matter of fact, they're very likely to. This is coming to us from Diana Russini herself, that all signs point to the Minnesota Vikings most likely moving on from running back Dalvin Cook. You might be wondering why on earth they're doing all this. I mean, Dalvin Cook is 27 years old, which is ironically when the Dallas Cowboys also moved on from Ezekiel Elliott. But the difference between Ezekiel Elliott and Dalvin Cook is that Dalvin Cook is coming off of a season where he was the most healthiest that he's been throughout his career. His fourth straight Pro Bowl, played in all 17 games, rushed for over 1,000 yards, averaged 4.4 yards per carry, and brought in 8 touchdowns. So why would the Minnesota Vikings move on from him as well? Dalvin Cook is 27 going on 28, and 2023 is the year that the Minnesota Vikings could get out of his contract without having to pay him $10.4 million in base salary for 2023 and $12 $12 million in base salary in 2024 and $13 million in base salary in 2025. Those are all rounded numbers, by the way. I mean, it's between that or him counting $8 million against the cap, so I could understand why it's a little tempting to move on from him, but this isn't a video solely based around Dalvin Cook. No, this video is based upon a trade that is going down. It's a pretty significant one that is following the same exact theme here. Last year, Za'darius Smith decided that he was going to do whatever it took to get revenge on his former team, the Green Bay Packers, so he signed with a division rival, the Minnesota Vikings, on a 3-year, $42 million contract. And to his credit, during the first half of the season, he was pretty freaking good. I mean, throughout the first 9 games of this season, Za'darius Smith had 9.5 sacks alone. The problem is, it seems like the moment week 9 passed, he just couldn't keep going. I mean, from week 10 to week 17, Za'darius Smith only was able to notch half of a sack. He requested a trade eventually this past offseason, and once again, following the same exact theme here, it seems like the Minnesota Vikings want to get younger. Signed Marcus Davenport in the offseason to play the other edge opposite of Danielle Hunter. So the following trade makes significantly more sense because the Minnesota Vikings are trading 3-time Pro Bowl pass rushers Za'Darius Smith to the Cleveland Browns. Sources tell Ian Rappaport and Tom Pelissaro. His reworked deal guarantees him $11.75 million in 2023, and he'll be a free agent next March. The deal was negotiated by his new agent Eric Burkhart of Rock Nation Sports. So I know what you guys are thinking. Immediately, you're probably thinking, Mike, what's the compensation here? Well, the compensation is what you'd expect from a player that is 30 years old getting traded. The Cleveland Browns get Za'Darius Smith, a 2025 6th round pick and a 2025 7th round pick, and the Minnesota Vikings get to upgrade those picks to a 2024 5th round pick and a 2025 5th round pick. So pretty much what you could expect. Obviously, what the Cleveland Browns are trying to do in this particular case is they've been looking over and over and over again for a good complement on the opposite edge to Myles Garrett. They tried with Jadeveon Clowney. That didn't necessarily work. So it looks like they're going to try once again with Za'Darius Smith. I think this works out remarkably for Za'Darius Smith in particular, because if you ask me, nothing against Danielle Hunter, who is a remarkable player in his own right. He also had 10.5 sacks for the Minnesota Vikings this past year. If you ask me which defense I would prefer to be on and which player I'd rather have on the opposing edge, you can't compare Myles Garrett to Danielle Hunter. Myles Garrett is a once-in-a-generation type of edge rusher that is going to put you in situations to succeed. I mean, you could potentially see a 2019 Robert Quinn-like season from Za'Darius Smith, and then he could hit free agency once again and trick a team like the Chicago Bears and paying him a 5-year, $70 million contract just because of how good Myles Garrett made him look. Do I think this is a smart play for the Cleveland Browns? I mean, yeah, you're buying low on a player that had 10 sacks, and it's definitely the best play here considering that you don't really have anyone on the opposing edge of Myles Garrett. And the Cleveland Browns essentially have to go all in at this point. I mean, once Deshaun Watson's salary cap hit kicks in, this team's going to be very limited in how they can improve themselves. So I think this is a nice pickup for the Cleveland Browns that's going to improve their defense no matter what. So I give the Cleveland Browns an A+ for this trade. I mean, you really don't have much to lose. I can't really give the Minnesota Vikings a grade here. I mean, they're trying to get younger and they achieved that, so I guess you could give them an A. It's not necessarily like a move that's going to win them a Super Bowl, but I get why they made the decision that they made. Let me know what you guys think about this trade in the comment section down below. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike. I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.